Two guys in the dark.
My housing complex, which the units are basically small cottages, are made for 2 roommates, with a common area and attached kitchen. A small storage closet in the common area containing water pipes leading to Suite A's bathroom. The 2 private areas of the suite contained a private bedroom, a sliding patio door, private bathroom. Sounds pretty ideal. My roomie, Jed, liked to throw parties. He liked tarantulas too, and he kept 6 of them. For the sake of saving my effort in recounting this story, there's a rundown of the chaos. This run-through of incidents is going to be kind of terse, because I'm working off of a checklist that I made a long time ago. During our stay together, my roomie, he'd brought his motorcycle into our common room because he was afraid that it would be stolen. This was fine, but then he started it and let it idle for 15 minutes without opening up any windows, causing all of our stuff to smell like motorcycle exhaust. After his girlfriend had left him, he went berserk in his private bathroom with a sledgehammer, or a geologist's hammer, and smashed all of his bathroom figures. I'm not sure of this, but I believe just before she left him, she ended up screwing some guy with public lice in my bed during a party. His toilet was inoperative at this point, so he used mine for a while, until I refused him access to mine. Later I would find out that he had shat in garbage bags and kept them in the common room closet for weeks. More on this much later. He set fire to our carpet with alcohol during a party. He peed in the fridge. He shat in the fridge as well, also in the crisper drawer, on the top oven, and instead of cleaning it up, turned on the burner. His reasoning was carbon is easier to clean than feces. He left a dead cat he found somewhere in our oven for a week and forgot all about it. I discovered it much later. He had owned 6 tarantulas and would let one run around free range. He assured me that he had tamed it. I assured him that he was really stupid. He never showered whatsoever. He sold drugs in his room. He smoked pot with his friends in the common area. He spilled bong water on 2 of my textbooks. He and his friends did cocaine off of the television set in the common area. He had a party to which he invited too many people. They spilled into my room. Strangers had sex in my room at that party, in my bed. One of them had public lice. Someone took a dump in my closet. Someone had left a used condom in my slipper. I discovered all of these things after it was much too late. Morning after said party, my mother had knocked on the front door, and a stranger from that party answered and immediately threw up on her legs. Crackheads would regularly come by our apartment at all hours of the night, trying to buy drugs because of his illicit activities. Whenever I answered the door and indicated that there were no crack to be, they would sometimes get really desperate, belligerent, and violent, and refuse to leave. He put food products containing milk, meat, and cheese on the heating unit and turned it on for 3 hours to see what would happen. I could have told him what would have happened if he had asked me. He got angry at some video game he and his friends were playing in the common area, so he busted into my room while I was sleeping, punched me in the face and stomach. A few days later, he had put a tarantula in my bed sheets while I was sleeping. Thankfully, I wasn't bitten, but I was freaked out, and still sometimes jump out of my bed in the middle of the night for no reason and attack my sheets. He did leave feces in a lot of our fixtures. He'd put it in baggies and leave them in strange places. I was thankful when he used a baggie. A few words of advice for potential roommates. A light fixture is not a toilet. A heating vent is not a toilet. The sink isn't a toilet. The oven isn't one. That is all. I was pissed off at this point. He refused to clean or take care of all the messes that were listed above, so I ended up cleaning them by keeping an hourly log and catalog of what work I did and worked out a bill, which I sent to him. I was tired of cleaning things out of our refrigerator, finding turds in our crisper drawer, and on the stovetop, vomit on the carpet, in our potted plants, on the grill of our television set, urine on the carpet, kitchen floor, sleeping behind the refrigerator, dead animals in our oven, freezer units, and bags of shit hidden in our light fixtures. Have you ever had to move a refrigerator out of its little nook just to get behind it so you can clean that stuff mixed with whatever lurks behind the refrigerator in the first place. After sending him the cleaning bill and getting a refusal of the payment, I took some of his stuff, dumped it in a storage unit across town, and held it until he had paid me back. He stole some of my stuff in retaliation, but I called the cops and repossessed my belongings. He was unable to articulate to the cops that I had some of his stuff in his exchange. So I ended up basically getting my stuff back while he had to be put in their car to cool off. Upon retrospect, I think maybe he became mentally ill after losing his girlfriend, and not being able to part with his feces was part of his illness. This is just me speculating. He wasn't poor. He was from a very wealthy family. They don't come into the picture, though. This is where the ceiling begins. Put a date mark right there, because this is where shit gets really crazy. I had enough. I bought a mini fridge, a plug-in stovetop, 2 padlock foot lockers, wooden bar duct tape, a remote control car, and an external padlock. My private area had 2 entrances. Here I best sum up my little fortress in this post that I made in another thread. Upon reflection, I really want to share how I kept my roommate out of my private area. It was dubbed the Home Alone security system. I had 2 potential entrances in my private area. A sliding glass patio door, regular door to the common area. I had secured the common door with a padlock on the outside, which was actually just for show. The inside was barricaded. At the bottom, I had rolled up a towel and sealed the rest of it with tape to avoid the smell or other chemical assaults from the common area. I packed against the door with my king-size bed, which was in turn secured from being dislodged by a bookshelf full of weights and books. Even if he had gotten through the padlock, he would not be able to open up the door without busting in it too. The 2 halves of the door was unsecured. I was worried that he might break the door and then gain access, so I had seized his stuff. I had put it in public storage across town. Now the sliding door is where the Home Alone shit comes in. It had a lock, but it was non-functional and only accessible from the inside. So in order to secure the door while I was away, I got a remote-controlled car, attached it to a string which was secured by a fish-eye screw at the top of the door, tied it to a security bar which would drop into the thread of the sliding door, preventing it from being opened. Anyone who has a sliding door would know how this works, but if anyone needs further explanation, I'm happy to furnish it. So when I came home, I would whip out my little remote control car, make the RC car run off, and lift the bar, then gain access to the apartment. To prevent this system from being discovered, I papered the inside of the sliding door with butcher paper. I ran a wire outside of the door in an obvious manner, so that the roomie would think that this wire somehow, if tugged correctly, would undo the lock. To my knowledge, all of his attempts to get inside my apartment were by messing with this wire, which was attached to the handle of an antique coffee grinder and a paint can. If you tugged it, you'd get a weird uneven resistance as the handle cranked turn, and the paint can danced, which added to the illusion that this wire has some secret way of ingress. I heard of this account from the neighbors because it occurred while I was away, but apparently he had lost his front door key, had some kind of intestinal problem, and had to go really bad. All the neighbors he knew had already hit up for toilet access and been refused by this point, so he's swearing like crazy, yanking at this wire, and bashing against the door in a frenzied desperation when the neighbors call the cops. Reported a B&E. When the cops show up, he's already in the bushes, just outside of my window. I hate him so much. I think he went crazy, lost all of his friends at some point, because around the time that I had barricaded it, I stopped hearing parties. In fact, I stopped hearing anything from the common area of the apartment, except for the occasional formless moans and thumping. I don't know precisely what went on in there, because I mentally washed my hands of the whole area. I did, however, start smelling odors. I taped up my door. I knew that it wasn't smart to do things like this, but I was just sick of dealing with this shit. I didn't call the landlord or anything, despite the fact that I knew he was destroying things over there. After cleaning so much of his stuff up, I just wanted the universal God of justice to see what the wreck the place would be without my presence. What I do know of what transpired over there, I can only reconstruct from forensic evidence, what precisely was destroyed, what common friends have told me in their accounts, and 2 forays over into the waste zone over the next 2 months. I essentially didn't see the front door of our apartment during this time. So my buddy's dad bought him and his brother a house to live in during university. I and another one of our friends had moved into the house, but there were still 2 rooms vacant, so they posted the vacancy online post. One random guy took one of the rooms. He moved his stuff in one day at around 5 a.m., which we thought was pretty strange to begin with. Now, he wasn't a student at our school. He actually moved to the city to be with his girlfriend, who was a student. Unfortunately for him, a couple of weeks after signing the lease, his girlfriend had dumped him. He was a strange guy to begin with. He was the filthiest person that I have ever met. One time he came home from his factory job, proceeded to make and eat a sandwich with his hands pure black from grease. It's pretty gross, and strange considering that we have sinks and soap in our house. Over time, he actually started becoming a lot more normal, probably because he came out and partied with us a lot. When we would go out, he would stay at the bar until closing and bring home some unattractive girl who was smashed out of her mind. He actually wheeled quite frequently. Then things started getting a little off. He developed a rash of some sort, which I thought was because his room was disgusting and there may have been bugs living in it. However, that's not what he thought. He told my friend that he thought he had been putting chemicals in his laundry soap to give him a rash, which of course we didn't. The paranoia continued with him misplacing his driver's license, which he thought that we had stolen and hid so that he couldn't come to the bar with us anymore. Again, wasn't true. So after a few weeks of him clearly developing paranoia, one morning the shit hit the fan. I woke up one morning at around 6 a.m. to the sound of someone running up and down the stairs. I was half asleep and didn't know what time it was, so I just assumed one of my roommates was late for class or something. Then I heard more frantic running, followed by my other normal roommate screaming. I jumped up, ran out to the kitchen. I see my normal roommate, I'll call him Steve, standing in the kitchen. Then I get around the corner and see the crazy one, I'll call him John, standing in the front of my fridge in a bathrobe, sweatpants, which were clearly women's and way too small, a baseball cap with a wolf on it. All of my and my other friend's shit had been torn out of the fridge and smashed to the ground. Pickles, milk, chili, you name it, all over the ground. Steve asked him what the hell was going on. He just replied while shivering, shaking, and sweating profusely. I took 11 Benadryl. We didn't know what to do, so we took him into the living room, sat him on the couch, and tried to calm him down. The whole time he was shaking, shivering, and sweating, and had one of the most murderous looks on his face that I've ever seen. At this point, my other, much slower to react roommate came out to see what the fuss was all about. When he walked into the living room, John looked at him with his death gaze, pointed and said, "That's my guy." I'm confident my friend has nightmares about it. So after a little while of us trying to figure out what to do while this kid mumbles random things, out of nowhere he jumps to his feet, lets out a war cry, and charges at my roommate, Steve. Now, Steve was a bouncer at some bar in our city, so when John had charged at him, he hip-tossed him around, threw him through one of the dining room chairs. After this, he jumped on him, held down his body. Then I jumped on his legs, and we held him down. He was kicking and punching us, trying to get us off of him. At this point, he started yelling some crazy things, most of which I forgot about. However, one that stuck out to me was, "The media always wins." So after holding him down for a while, and no progress to his mental state, we called 911, waited for the police and EMS to come and take him to the hospital. Now, before I explain what happened next, I should explain what happened after he got taken away. We were, of course, quite shocked and curious, so we went into his room to take a quick look at what the fuck he'd been up to all night. In his room, we found a bunch of our food, a bottle of Tylenol which was missing a substantial amount of pills, some Benadryl scattered around the floor. We also found a box that had a photo album and some other things in it, which we think most likely was all stuff from his relationship with the girl who dumped him after he moved out here with her. That being said, we figured the hat was a gift from her, and the sweatpants were probably hers. So now that the ex-girlfriend box is out there, I can continue. This is where it goes from sad and shocking to just plain creepy and frightening. While we were holding him down, he kept struggling, and in the process, his little sweatpants started coming down. They got down to about the bottom of his ass when we noticed that he was wearing a little purple woman's panties. We could only assume that they were his ex's. So we figured that most likely he tried to kill himself with pills, but instead he just ended up tripping the fuck out. We only ever saw him once again when he came to pick up his stuff and move out, but he clearly didn't want to talk about anything.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.